The music stopped. Forks froze in midair. A hall filled with gold and crystal fell silent as one man's voice cut through the celebration. The old butler's hand trembled as he pointed at the bride's neck. His face was pale, his lips shaking. "That necklace," he whispered. Then louder, his voice echoing across the ballroom. That necklace belonged to her. To the daughter who vanished 20 years ago. Gasps rippled through the guests. The groom turned to his bride, confusion written on his face. The bride, Sophia, instinctively reached for the silver pendant resting against her chest. Her hands shook. She had no idea why the butler's voice carried such pain, but she knew one thing: something buried deep in this mansion had just clawed its way back to the surface, and nothing would ever be the same again. Sophia Hale grew up with little more than her mother's love. Their home was a one-bedroom cottage on the edge of a dusty road where every creak in the wood spoke of years of struggle. Her father had died before she could remember his face, leaving her mother, Grace, to raise her alone. Grace worked long, hours as a seamstress, patching clothes for wealthy clients, while Sophia dreamed of something more. But Sophia wasn't bitter. She had grown into a kind, graceful young woman with soft brown hair, curious eyes, and a heart that believed in people's goodness. She believed that love, not wealth, was the true treasure in life. Her life took a turn when she met Ethan Whitmore. Ethan wasn't just any man. He was the only son of the Whitmore family, one of the city's wealthiest dynasties. Their estate stretched across acres, with towering gates, marble halls, and portraits of ancestors who seemed to watch every step. Ethan, however, was different from his cold, calculating parents. He carried himself with warmth. His laughter was genuine. He often escaped the suffocating expectations of his family to wander in the town's marketplace, where fate had led him to Sophia. She had been delivering clothes for her mother when he saw her struggling with a heavy basket. Without hesitation, he had helped. What began as a small act of kindness grew into long conversations, secret walks, and eventually love. But their love was far from simple. Ethan's parents, Oliver and Margaret Whitmore, saw Sophia as an intruder. To them, she was unworthy, a girl with no pedigree, no wealth, no status. Yet Ethan was stubborn. He told his parents that he would not marry anyone else. Against their wishes, he proposed to Sophia with a modest ring, vowing that love mattered more than family pride. Sophia accepted, her heart overflowing. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she believed love could conquer even the tallest walls. And so the wedding day arrived. The mansion glowed with light as hundreds of guests gathered. Silk drapes hung from the ceiling, golden chandeliers sparkled, and the air carried the scent of roses imported from faraway lands. The Whitmores had spared no expense, though their smiles remained thin, painted only for appearances. Sophia entered in a simple yet elegant gown her mother had stitched with her own hands. Around her neck hung a necklace, a small silver pendant, shaped like a teardrop, worn and old. It was her only heirloom, passed down from her mother, who claimed it had belonged to Sophia's father's side of the family. She wore it not for glamour, but for comfort. Little did she know. It would shatter the entire Whitmore dynasty. The silence after the butler's words felt heavier than the chandeliers hanging above. Sophia froze. Her hands touched the pendant at her throat. She whispered softly, as if to herself, "This necklace? It was my mother's." The old butler, Henry, stepped forward, his face ashen. His voice cracked with emotion. "No, child. That necklace belonged to Amelia Whitmore, the first daughter of this house. She disappeared before you were even born." The guests stirred, whispers growing like a storm. All eyes turned to Margaret and Oliver Whitmore, seated at the head table. Their expressions betrayed something sharp, fear, quickly hidden behind. Cold composure. Ethan's face tightened. He took Sophia's trembling hand. "Henry, you must be mistaken. My sister. My parents never told me I had one." Henry's gaze didn't waver. "Because they erased her. But I never forgot. I swore if I ever saw that necklace again I would speak. And today?" He pointed directly at Sophia. "Today, it is around her neck." Sophia's heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear the murmur of the crowd. Her mother had told her the necklace came from her father's family. Could it be a lie? Margaret Whitmore suddenly rose, her jeweled hand slamming against the table. "Enough!" she snapped. Her voice sliced through the whispers like a blade. "This is a wedding, not a stage for gossip. Henry is old. His memory is failing." Henry's lips trembled. His eyes burned with desperation. "My lady, my memory is not failing. I raised that little girl, Amelia. I watched her grow until the day she vanished. And that pendant was the last thing she ever held in her hands." The room fell into chaos. Guests whispered, some in disbelief, some in suspicion. Sophia's knees weakened, but Ethan steadied her. His eyes darted between his parents and the butler. "Mother? Father? Is it true? Did I have a sister?" Margaret's face hardened. Oliver remained silent, his hands gripping his cane, knuckles white. "Ethan," Margaret said with finality, "this is neither the time nor the place. Do not let this foolishness ruin your marriage." But the seed of doubt had already taken root. Later that night, after the ceremony limped to an uneasy finish, Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that the butler's words carried more weight than she understood. She sat alone in the bridal suite, fingers brushing the necklace, when the door creaked open. Henry stepped inside, his eyes heavy with sorrow. "Forgive me, child," he said softly. "I did not mean to bring shame to your day, but I could not stay silent any longer." Sophia looked at him with pleading eyes. "Tell me everything." Henry sighed, lowering himself into a chair. His voice was low, almost a whisper, as if the very walls might be listening. Amelia Whitmore was the firstborn child of Oliver and Margaret. Beautiful, curious, and full of life. But she was different. She cared nothing for wealth or status. She often ran to the gardens, to the servants' quarters, even into town, speaking with those your in-laws considered beneath them. She was a light in this cold house. Sophia leaned closer, her heart racing. But when she was barely 5 years old, she vanished. The official story was that she was kidnapped. The family claimed a ransom note was found, though none of us ever saw it. After weeks of search, the matter was silenced. No one spoke her name again. To the world, Amelia Whitmore had never existed. Sophia's hand tightened around the pendant. "And you believe I'm her?" Henry shook his head slowly. "No, not her, but you carry what she carried. That necklace, it is no trinket. It was crafted by a Whitmore ancestor generations ago. I was there when Amelia's nurse gave it to her on her 5th birthday. She never took it off." Sophia's breath caught. Her mother had told her it was her father's. But what if her mother had lied? Henry's eyes softened. "I don't know who you truly are, child. But I do know this. Your mother holds the answer. If you wish to protect yourself, you must ask her." The following day, Sophia found herself in turmoil. She loved Ethan deeply, but fear gnawed at her. If the Whitmores discovered some scandal in her bloodline, would they destroy her? When Ethan entered the room, she forced a smile. But he saw through it. "Talk to me," he pleaded. "You're distant. Is it about Henry's words?" Sophia hesitated, but then confessed. "My mother told me this necklace came from my father's side, but Henry swears it belonged to a Whitmore child, a daughter who vanished. Ethan, I don't know what to believe. Ethan's face hardened with resolve. Then we'll find the truth, together, no matter what it is. That night, Sophia returned to the small cottage she had grown up in. Grace, her mother, opened the door with tears of joy at seeing her daughter, now a bride. But Sophia's expression was heavy, her questions sharper than ever. "Mother," she whispered, holding up the necklace, "where did this come from? Tell me the truth." Grace froze, her face draining of color. She reached for a chair, her legs weak. "Sophia, please, don't ask me this. Not now." But Sophia pressed on, tears in her eyes. "Everything I am, everything I believe, is being questioned. If you love me, tell me." Grace's lips quivered. She reached for Sophia's. "Hands, my darling, I wanted to protect you. I wanted you to live free of shadows. But the truth..." She choked back a sob. "The truth is darker than you imagine." Sophia's breath caught in her chest. Her whole life felt like it was standing on a cliff, about to collapse. Grace finally whispered, "That necklace was not your father's. It was given to me. The night I found you..." Sophia's lips parted in disbelief. "What do you mean? You found me," she whispered, her voice trembling. Grace's hands shook as she clasped her daughter's fingers tighter. "I never told you the truth because I feared losing you. But the night you came into my life, you were not in my arms by birth. You were abandoned, left outside the old chapel by the forest. I found you wrapped in a silken blanket, and wearing that necklace." Sophia staggered back, her world spinning. "You're saying I'm not your daughter?" Grace wept openly now. "You are my daughter, Sophia, in every way that matters. I raised you. I loved you. But blood? No, I cannot claim that. The only clue to where you came from was that pendant. Pendant." Sophia's mind swirled with fragments, the butler's words, the necklace, her mother's confession. Could it be true? Could she belong to the Whitmores, the very family who despised her? Her heart raced with fear, but also with a dangerous spark of realization. If she was Amelia or Amelia's blood, then she wasn't marrying into the Whitmore family. She was the Whitmore family. The next evening, Ethan stormed into the Whitmore mansion with Sophia by his side. His parents sat in the drawing room, surrounded by portraits of solemn ancestors. "Enough of your silence," Ethan demanded, his voice filled with fire. "Tell us the truth. Did you have a daughter before me?" Margaret's face tightened. Oliver's eyes narrowed. The room grew unbearably tense. Finally, Oliver leaned forward, his voice low and gravelly. "Yes, you had a sister, Amelia, but she was taken from us." "Taken?" Sophia asked, her voice breaking. "Or abandoned?" Margaret's lips thinned. Her eyes darted to the pendant resting on Sophia's chest. The mask slipped for the briefest moment. Fear, recognition, regret. Ethan's jaw clenched. "Mother, father, you lied to me my whole life. Why?" Margaret rose, her hands trembling, her composure cracking for the first time. "Because Amelia was not meant to be. She was born before the marriage was secure, before the contracts, before the family name was protected. If the world had known, we would have lost everything. So we silenced it. We told the world she was kidnapped," Sophia gasped. Ethan's face paled. "You abandoned your own child?" Sophia's voice was sharp, cutting through the air. Margaret's eyes burned with shame, though her voice stayed cold. "She was a weakness we could not afford." Sophia's knees buckled, the weight of the revelation crushing her. Her entire life had been built on lies, shadows, and stolen innocence. She looked at Ethan, whose eyes filled with grief and fury. Henry, the butler, stepped into the room then, his voice heavy with sorrow. I tried to stop it. I begged them, but they sent the child away in the dead of night. I searched for years. I never found her. Until now. His gaze fell on Sophia. You, my dear, you are Amelia Whitmore. The room erupted in silence, so heavy it felt suffocating. Sophia's hands shook as she touched the pendant. All the pieces fit. The lies, her mother's silence, the butler's recognition. She wasn't just marrying into the Whitmore family. She was the Whitmore heir they had buried. Her voice broke, filled with both anger and sorrow. So all these years, you lived in your mansion, with your riches, your parties, your pride, while I grew up in poverty, thinking I was nothing. And now, on the day of my wedding, you would have let me stand here as if I were some outsider, when in truth I am your blood. Margaret's face crumbled. Oliver's shoulders sank. Ethan stepped closer, placing his arm around Sophia protectively. Then, the truth is clear, Ethan said, his voice resolute. Sophia is not only my bride, she is my sister. The words hit the room like thunder. Guests who had gathered in the hall gasped in horror. The family's reputation was collapsing before their eyes. Sophia staggered, her heart racing with the weight of the impossible truth. Her entire life had been stolen from her, and now she stood at the crossroads of love, family, and betrayal. Sophia stood frozen in the golden hall, her whole body trembling. Ethan's words echoed like thunder. In her ears, Sophia is not only my bride, she is my sister. The room fell into stunned silence. Guests who moments ago celebrated with champagne now whispered in disbelief, their eyes darting between the bride, the groom, and the powerful Whitmore family whose empire was unraveling before their eyes. Sophia's hands clutched the necklace. She felt her heart breaking, not because of shame, but because her love had been stolen by a secret she never asked to carry. Ethan turned to her, his voice filled with anguish. I didn't know. Sophia, I swear to you, I didn't know. She nodded through her tears. I believe you, Ethan. But the truth has destroyed everything we dreamed of. Margaret fell to her knees, her jeweled hands trembling. For the first time, the cold mask slipped entirely. Tears streamed down her face. I only wanted to protect this family, she sobbed. But in doing so, I destroyed it. Oliver stared at the floor, his silence louder than any confession. His pride, the fortress he had built his whole life, was crumbling. Henry, the butler, bowed his head. Secrets cannot be buried forever. They return, and when they do, they demand a price. The wedding ended not with vows, but with silence. Sophia left the mansion that night, her gown trailing through the rain. Ethan tried to follow, but she stopped him with a gentle hand. No, Ethan, this is not our path anymore. We loved each other in innocence, not knowing who we were. But now, we must let go. Not because we want to, but because we must. Ethan's tears glistened in the moonlight. He pulled her into one final embrace, holding her as if he could stop time. But when he let go, he knew it was truly the end. Sophia returned to Grace's cottage, the only place that had ever felt like home. Her mother wept when she saw her. I'm so sorry, my child, Grace whispered. I only wanted you to grow in love, not in lies. Sophia held her mother tightly. You gave me love. You gave me a family. That's more than the Whitmores ever gave me. Weeks passed. The Whitmore scandal spread like wildfire. The empire that once stood unshakable began to fracture under the weight of the truth. Margaret and Oliver withdrew from society, their pride shattered. Ethan, disillusioned with his family, left the mansion behind, choosing to live a quieter, simpler life away from the shadow of his name. And Sophia? She rebuilt herself from the ashes of her broken wedding. She stitched dresses beside her mother, again, but this time with a heart stronger than steel. She realized she was not defined by bloodlines, by wealth, or by abandoned legacies. She was defined by love, resilience, and truth. Sometimes wealth builds walls so high that even love cannot climb them. Sometimes lies seem easier than truth. But no matter how long a secret is buried, it finds its way back to the surface. Sophia's story reminds us that family is not always the people who share our blood, but the ones who choose to stand beside us in truth. Because in the end, lies can destroy dynasties, but love and honesty will always rebuild lives, build lives.